I'm going to introduce you to someone who should by all means be in a deep and crippling depression, and show you that by following his very simple strategies, you too can learn to overcome your own negative thoughts completely and wake up every day in a state of pure happiness. And no, this is not clickbait. Tenzin Gyatso was born on a farm in 1935. At the age of just 4, he was chosen by high monks as the reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama, and his life as the Dalai Lama had begun. In the monastery, they taught him about art, science, and languages, and in 1955, his time as the de facto top authority in Tibet came to a quick end. The end result was that in 1973, only 20 years later, of the 3.7 million original Tibetans, only 1 million remained in Tibet.
This is the last photograph of the Dalai Lama taken in the Free Tibet.
In order to practice love, you also need practice of tolerance. The situation is very difficult. Chinese forces are already reached. Now time come, leave.
It was one of the most daring escapes in history. Fighting breaks out and forces the Dalai Lama to escape the invading Chinese.
Exactly 10 o'clock, I left from Nuclinga.
I had a hunch that I'm going on an important mission. My job was to go and receive him, ensure his safety, and bring him back to the plains of India safely.
Real danger is there. Danger on our life. I never consider myself as something special. If I consider myself something different from you, like I'm Buddhist, His Holiness Dalai Lama, or even if you consider I'm Nobel laureate, then actually you create yourself as a prisoner. I forget these things. I simply consider I'm one of the 7 billion human beings. We are mentally, emotionally, intellectually, we are same.
How does someone who's been through so much manage to find their way to happiness, find their way to maintaining their humor, and find out how to teach it to us? Let's find out.
When in aeroplane, sometimes this gas problem comes, then you see, difficult to let out. So occasionally, you see, look around, then remain like that.
This is how to achieve happiness as decreed by the Dalai Lama. Let's start with the prerequisites of happiness. The purpose of life, and therefore our existence, is to seek and to be happy. Luckily for us, happiness is determined more by one's state of mind than by external conditions, circumstances, or events. That is, of course, one's basic survival needs are met. So the turning towards happiness as a valid, achievable goal and the conscious decision to seek it in a systematic manner can profoundly change your life. Everyone on earth wants to be happy and reduce their suffering. The 3 prerequisites are: 1. Learning which sources bring us happiness, and not those rooted in vices or short-term boosts, but those rooted in compassion, kindness, and friendship, as well as those sources that bring us suffering, rooted in anger, hatred, selfishness, and envy. Reflecting on the emotions, environments, and behaviors to discover which of these result in positive or negative emotions, and we do this through reflection. 2. Realize and understand the causal relationship between events and emotions. Events and thoughts that cause us happiness will lead to positive emotions and behaviors which benefit us. Events and thoughts that cause suffering will lead us to negative emotions and behaviors which harm us. That's the causal relationship. 3. Reinforce and increase our interaction with sources that create happiness, and cultivate them by increasing our participation with environments, people, actions, and thoughts that bring us happiness, and in turn decrease our interaction with sources of unhappiness. And we do this by avoiding situations in which these elements arise, changing our environment, and applying the direct antidotes 2 negative emotions, which we'll get into later on in the video, timestamp here. The next part is we start training the mind, the heart, and the spirit. So once we learn to identify the sources of happiness and negativity, we can begin training the mind for happiness. We already have, right in this moment, all the equipment we need to achieve complete happiness. It's not greater success, fame, a perfect body, a perfect mate. No, all we need is our mind. That's it. So training refers to building the self-discipline to reflect on the current sources of happiness and suffering in your life and evaluate your participation with each of them. One should increase the frequency of this reflection from weekly to daily to almost constantly to begin seeing your progress over the long run. Bringing about self-discipline to overcome your negative qualities within one's mind is the essence of the Buddha's teaching. Although the Dalai Lama believes that our human nature is fundamentally gentle and compassionate, in order to take advantage of this, we must develop an appreciation and awareness of that fact. The next component of training involves, through learning, understanding, and studying human nature, developing the conviction that the predominant feature of human nature is essentially compassionate and gentle. This understanding will dramatically change how we perceive and interact with ourselves and others, and how we conduct our daily lives. Anger, violence, and aggression may certainly arise, but it is on a secondary, more superficial level. They arise when we are frustrated in our efforts to achieve love and affection, and they are not part of our most basic underlying nature. There are hundreds of studies that indicate that it is scientifically incorrect to say that we have an inherited tendency to make war or act violently. That behavior is not genetically programmed into human nature. It is learned and therefore can also be unlearned. The third part of the video is establishing compassion as the key for a strong and peaceful mind. Through training, one can forge a peaceful mind with the inner discipline to remain unaffected by changes in external and material circumstances. One achieves this by cultivating human warmth with compassion and by rooting one's self-worth and dignity in contentment and compassion. Contentment is the true antidote of greed. Not to have that which we want, but rather to want and appreciate that which we already have. Achieving this mindset is a sign of achieving a higher level of self-worth and allows one to focus on the pursuit of happiness and not material goods. Compassion can be the base source of self-worth and dignity. You can relate to others because you are also a human being within the human community. You share that bond, and that human bond is enough to give rise to a sense of worth and dignity. And that bond can become a source of consolation in the event that you lose everything else. So how does one improve their overall well-being? By establishing compassion and crafting better relationships with those around them. Well, we need to create intimate relationships based on human warmth, intimacy, and compassion. When we view others through the lens of compassion, it automatically opens something inside of us, and we'll find that all human beings are just like us, and it'll be easier to relate and communicate with them. We'll understand their suffering, we'll be able to empathize it, and most importantly, we'll be able to genuinely show that we care. After establishing compassion and empathy, we must learn to respect others' backgrounds and views. Every life is different, and the individual experiences that one undergoes is a big factor in the views that develop. If we had the same experiences as somebody else, it's very likely that our views would mirror theirs. So we can take these situations as opportunities to ask and learn about completely new experiences which may be entirely foreign to us. The last part of creating relationships is to be honest and open and always try to find common ground. when we're dealing with trying to understand relationship problems, the first stage in this process involves deliberating on the underlying nature and basis of that relationship. If one is seeking to build a truly satisfying relationship, the best way of bringing this about is to get to know the deeper nature of the person and relate to them on that level instead of merely on the basis of superficial characteristics, such as relationships for gain or those that are being used to increase social standing. This brings us to transforming suffering. Our attitude towards suffering is important as it defines how we cope with it. Our default attitude consists of an intense aversion and intolerance of pain and suffering. However, if we transform our attitude to one that allows for greater tolerance of suffering, this will do much to counteract the feelings of mental unhappiness, dissatisfaction, and discontent. There is even a possibility of complete freedom from suffering, known as a state of liberation. This is achieved by removing all causes of suffering from the mind. According to Buddhist thought, the root causes of suffering are ignorance, craving, and hatred. These are called the three poisons of the mind. Ignorance is the most important and refers specifically to a fundamental misperception of the true nature of the self and reality. Through reflection and repetitive efforts to remove craving and hatred and develop a deeper understanding of the true nature of reality, one can reduce and even eliminate suffering. If it were not so, then constantly reflecting on it would be nothing more than a rather morbid and negative exercise. We begin by accepting suffering as a natural part of life, a part that we share with all other living creatures. All life is also constantly undergoing change, and it is important that we make peace with that fact because resisting change can be a large source of suffering. We then need to confront the problems that are causing us suffering and look for solutions. That said, we need to make an allowance for ourselves because once we are already in a difficult situation, it's difficult to change your attitude and impulses simply by adopting a particular thought once or twice. It's gonna be via a process of repeating our new viewpoints over and over that we enable ourselves to deal with these increasingly difficult situations. We will even begin to learn that without these hard situations, or let's call them enemies, we won't have an opportunity to practice our patience and tolerance in the real world. Now, except in dangerous circumstances, which do call for strong countermeasures to prevent harm, it can be useful to view difficult situations from a shifted perspective. Let me share a parable with you. When I encounter someone, let me assume I'm the lowest in the room and from the depth of my heart hold others supreme. When I encounter someone wicked, operating by violent sin and affliction, may I view them as rare treasures. When I'm abused and slandered out of envy, may I take the defeat and offer the victory to the other. When the one I have raised with hope hurts me, may I hold them as a supreme guru. In short, may I directly and indirectly take upon myself the harm and suffering of all beings to offer benefit and happiness to all beings. Now, becoming rigid in our ways of thinking means that we can no longer adapt to new circumstances. While we must steadfastly maintain our core set of underlying values, we must at the same time remain flexible. The Dalai Lama has achieved this through the reduction of his value system to its most basic elements and living from that vantage point. Everything else is open to discussion, and when he receives new information, he challenges his beliefs and ways of thinking. This gives us the greatest freedom and flexibility to deal with the vast array of problems that confront us on a daily basis, while sticking to our values. His values are: 1. I am a human being. 2. I want to be happy and I don't want to suffer. 3. Other human beings, like myself, also want to be happy and don't want to suffer. We should strive to find meaning in real suffering. While finding meaning may not alleviate real physical pain, what it does is protect you from unnecessary additional psychological pain. If we reframe suffering as a lesson, that can be used to help others going through the same experience, and suffering then takes on a new meaning. So with this new goal of helping others, it's going to feel less overwhelming. And this new goal can even be used as the basis for religious or spiritual practices. We need to understand what physical pain is in order to deal with it. So the brain receives signals. The mind then converts those signals into pain. To lessen the effect of this, we must separate the real physical pain from the additional pain our mind creates via our thoughts about the pain. The same occurs with other forms of suffering because we have a tendency to add to it via fear, anger, guilt, loneliness, helplessness, being overly sensitive, overreacting to minor things, and taking things too personally. We should recognize that and temper these tendencies. The two keys that we can use to reduce these are to remember: 1. Pain is essential to life. It prevents injuries and is an important learning tool. 2. Knowing its purpose, as we described earlier, helps us to manage it. Suffering is a basic element that we share with others, and we can use this to help others as well as relate to others going through the same situation, unifying us with all living creatures. Now we get to the juiciest part, which are the antidotes for specific negative emotions. So let's get into it. To combat negative emotions, we are going to employ their corresponding positive emotion or antidote. In order to apply the antidote, we must first learn about the specific negative emotion and understand why we want to change our way of thinking about it. Imagine how much better life would be if you could always remain in control of your emotions, even in the most difficult circumstances, and know that any negative feeling can be eliminated through specific action and reflection and focusing and cultivating its anti-emotion. Hold on to this vision to create a sense of urgency to begin this adaptation. And through the repetitive, long-term, conscious application of these antidotes, we will establish new habits and pathways in the mind, and over time, we will find our thoughts automatically following these new pathways. Now, what's the basis for claiming that we can eliminate emotions? It's twofold. First, the human mind has the amazing capability of selecting specific things to evaluate as well as specific perspectives to view them from. This allows us to isolate parts of ourselves, view them through different perspectives, and once we have identified them, we can work to eliminate or enhance them. Second, we need to understand that specific positive states of mind can act as direct antidotes to our negative tendencies and delusory states of mind. The premise is that as you work on and enhance the capacity of these antidotal factors, the more you will be able to reduce the influences and effects of negative emotions. To deal with anger and hatred, one must cultivate patience and tolerance. These are the only factors that can give you protection from the destructive effects of anger and hatred. When anger arises, try to take a time out and evaluate the situation. At least make sure to evaluate it afterwards. While difficult, through repetition, it will become easier and lead to clearer decision making as the effect of anger on your emotional state will be reduced. The end result of cultivating patience and tolerance is the natural ability for forgiveness to arise. Forgiving will become very easy, and the weight of carrying negative emotions towards others for extended periods of time will lift. To deal with anxiety, one may apply sincere motivation. If you look at your motivations for something and base them on altruism, compassion, doing the right thing, improving the lives of others, forcing others to come to terms with reality, then one should never have doubts about if their motivations are pure or not. Once ensuring that they are coming from a place of good intentions, the feelings of anxiety will disappear. However, if one tries to do things for immoral, corruptive, destructive reasons, then uneasiness will arise, which manifests itself as anxiety. Take, for instance, winning a tournament. With the motivation of putting on the performance of a lifetime for the audience, the fans, the family, even giving the other team the most exciting and intense match of their lives, versus basing it on wanting to destroy the competition, take away their dreams, prove to others that they're inferior and that you can rub it in their face. Well, you'll see the same action of winning a championship will feel completely different depending on the motivation behind it. Once sincere motivation is established, one must understand the following, which is also the antidote to fear and worry. If the situation or problem is such that it can be remedied or solved, then there's no need to worry about it. Just do what it needs to be done. Alternatively, if there's no way out, no solution, no possibility of resolution, then there's also no point in worrying about it, because you can't do anything about it anyway. Honesty is the antidote for low self-esteem and inflated self-confidence. A sense of low esteem and inflated self-confidence both come from a very specific sense of anxiety. And if anxiety has not yet been conquered, it can be appropriate to deal with these head-on to accelerate the process. The specific anxiety relevant here regards others seeing you as you truly are and trying to hide or unknowingly suppress the true you. You must learn to be honest with yourself and others in general, but also specifically about what your capabilities are. When you are truly honest, you will find that you have been either over or underestimating yourself. And the more open and honest you are, the less fear you'll have, because there's no anxiety left about being exposed or revealed to others. And when you no longer have an issue with being seen as you are, the side effect is the development of a supreme self-confidence, knowing exactly what you are and are not capable of, and being completely comfortable in your own skin is extremely powerful. It gives you the power to accurately judge if you can complete any goal you wish to set for yourself. And as you learn more and gain more abilities, you will see that your potential will grow. And potential is a direct antidote for self-hatred. Self-hatred, like all other negative mental states, are not intrinsic parts of the human mind. In fact, the first time the Dalai Lama encountered this was in his late 50s, during a conversation with the writer of one of the Dalai Lama's most famous books. And upon reflection, he went back to his basic principles to figure this one out. So if we start from the basis that the definition of love is based upon a genuine wish for someone's happiness, then each of us does in fact love him or herself. Since, as we established at the beginning, everyone sincerely wishes for his or her own happiness. Even in its most extreme, a misguided thought such as ending oneself is based on the sincere but incorrect hope that it is a route to happiness. In reality, the only answer is to learn the principles of happiness and to train one's mind to allow for the conditions to be present to be happy. As long as we know and maintain an awareness that we have this marvelous gift of human intelligence and a capacity to develop determination and use it in positive ways, we have an underlying baseline mental health. And this is the basis for an underlying strength that comes from realizing we have this great human potential. This realization for our potential and the gift of human intelligence can act as a built-in mechanism that allows us to deal with any difficult situation we are facing without losing hope or sinking into self-hatred. Reminding ourselves of the great qualities that we share with all human beings acts to neutralize the impulse to think that we are bad or undeserving. In fact, Many Tibetans reflect on this as a daily meditation practice. Perhaps this is the reason why, in Tibetan culture, self-hatred is virtually unheard of. Spirituality is valuable. Whether it takes the format of a religion or simply following basic moral values is up to the individual. The essential components of spirituality in either format should consist of the basic human qualities of goodness, kindness, and compassion. Whether or not one wishes to believe in something further, these basic components are essential to living a full and happy life. Training the mind to bring about inner discipline and cultivating positive mental states is the essence of a spiritual life. This is where the value of religion should not be understated, as it can be an extremely valuable tool and act as a shortcut by providing structure to the training of the mind and creating self-discipline. That said, it can most certainly be achieved without it, by sticking to the basic moral values and reflecting upon them. In fact, that's the basis on which all religions are built. So whether one leads a spiritual life, whether without religion, depends solely on whether one has been successful in bringing about disciplined, tamed states of mind that translate into one's daily actions and follows them through every encounter, decision, and moment in their life. And of course, in the successful completion of the search for and maintenance of a true state of happiness. Please consider checking out my Patreon if you want to support me that way, or going ahead and smash that subscribe button if you want more content like this, and hit that little bell icon. Thank you guys. Here's a joke to finish it off.
Thank you so much. I have learned much from meeting you today. I have learned, for instance, that we're all on the same road.
Yes.
With the ultimate goal.
That's right.
But we're all different travelers.
And also same experience of gas.
I don't think I'll ever forget this day.